One, two, three. Is that too hot for you? There you go.
One of the other mics is live.
That's why I just plugged in this into this. It's the speaker that's picking it up. But it's tied to my microphone. Should take care of it. Have a good one.
Test, test, 1, 2, 1, 2, test, test. I hear you kind of noisy. Check, check, 1, 2.
I won't read it, I say that, but I'll be delivering to the
Because it needs to be on like that and on this.
Good evening. I'm Scott Becker, and I'm the principal here at Lake Havasu High School. I would like to welcome you to the last town hall meeting before Election Day. I'm extremely excited to have an opportunity to share a few things that you may not know about Lake Havasu High School students and our staff. I want to start off by sharing a story about a few schools in Arizona that were deemed excelling. I will not share the name of the schools that I visited with some of our district staff as well as Ms. Festa a few years ago. The things that I will share with you are the thoughts I had as I walked through the hallways and visited teachers' classrooms. First and foremost are the students at the other schools. When I compared the students in the hallways of the ones that walked in our hallways, my thoughts were confirmed that we have the best students, second to none. The second thing that I noticed, too, was the teachers that were in front of the classrooms compared to ours. I was looking through the eyes as an administrator as to who I would want to hire if I were allowed to take a few teachers back to Havasu. Yet again, my original thoughts were confirmed that we have the greatest teachers and we are blessed to have them not only in our schools, but our community. As you listen to me talk about this visit, it is my hopes that you trust my judgment of our students and our staff, or that you had similar experience if you know our staff and students. The short story that I just shared with you is biased with no question and may have no merit to some that have never met me. To help paint a better picture for you to draw your own conclusions, I would like to share the positive things that happen inside the hallways of our school, not only on a daily basis, but on a yearly basis. Lake Havasu High School hosts the highest graduation rate in Mojave County and above the state average as well as the national average. Last year, depending how the people measure it, we were right at 88%, which most high schools would kill to have. Every junior on our campus is afforded the opportunity through a grant to take the ACT, and year after year our students' scores are at or above the national average. A little side note to that, we are testing all of our juniors. The other schools that we're being compared to, only the kids that are going to college are taking those tests. Our CTE program continually places at the state level and recently the national level, and 2 years ago we had somebody qualify for the Worlds. Local high schools compete each year in the Math Olympics, where we have taken the top honors for the last 14 years. So all of the high schools in the area, Lake Havasu, Mojave, River Valley, Kingman, they all travel up to MCC, and there's a Math Olympics Day. They compete on many different levels, from basic algebra all the way through AP, calculus, and we have taken home that championship trophy over the last 14 years. Something that's cool about that is the kids that are going to compete for that trophy, they take time out of their day to go test after school hours to be considered to be on that team to go compete. The other cool part about that is it doesn't happen the 4 years at Lake Havasu High School that we have our kids prepared to test that well. It is kindergarten all the way through our 12th grade here in our district. Our students compete each year in the We the People competition, where we have qualified for the state competition for the past 11 years. Over the past 3 years, we've had our AP Calculus students average just over a 4 on the AP Calculus test. A 5 is a perfect score. We currently have the Monsanto Rural National Teacher of the Year in our hallways every single day. We currently have 5 National Board Certified Teachers, which is 6% of our staff, while only 3% of the teachers hold this distinction nationally. Our high school counseling department is currently a recognized ASCA model program, which is RAMP. This is another nationally recognized distinction, and we are one of 4 high schools in Arizona to achieve this status. Although this is a short list of great things at LHHS, I hope this gives some concrete evidence of the things our staff and students accomplish. I was lucky enough to be named principal here and took over a very successful school, and like those that have been in my shoes before, we know it's the staff and the students that make LHHS the greatest high school ever. Before you hear from some of our other guests tonight, I want to take this last opportunity where I'm speaking to the whole to thank a few groups of people, because without their action and bringing these things before you in the community, they've done a lot of work and put in a lot of hours, and it's voting season, and pretty much all of them have been on the campaign trail, even though they are not running for office. I'd like to thank Citizens for Havasu Schools, the Only Orchids Group, Political Action Committee, the Partnership for Economic Development, the staff at LHHS and the district, our school board, Purple Griffin. We are running live right now on Facebook, so people can watch on Facebook. Also the Chamber of Commerce, and last but not least, the next gentleman who has worked tirelessly on this campaign is Steve Greeley, and he's going to greet you next. Thank you.
Okay, so the score is 1-1 in the top of the fourth. Before I start, we're going to show a video. I'm sure many of you have seen this already, but it's a really cool video, so we'll all watch it again. So if you guys are ready in the back, please.
Lake Havasu City cares about quality education for our children. In August 2015, 200 citizens first came together to create a plan for Frontier Communications' America's Best Communities contest, and overwhelmingly agreed that teacher pay was our community's greatest challenge and the lack of funding for our schools our primary concern. After that town hall meeting, leaders in business, education, and community organizations formed Citizens for Havasu Schools to create a new approach to solving this problem. This team of committed volunteers spent countless hours listening and learning from all of us in Lake Havasu City, and are now the champions of a community-led effort to invest in talented, effective teachers and 21st century schools. The first way we'll do this is to pass a 15% M&O override that will direct funds to teacher and staff salaries, health benefits, and to reduce athletic fees. We know that our educator pay is not competitive nationally, but we're not even competitive in our region. That's why this year alone we lost half of our elementary school principals and had a 20% teacher turnover. This hurts our children and undermines our potential for being a vibrant and prosperous community, even after the passage of Prop 123. You see, the long overdue state funds that were restored to the school district after 123 were directed entirely to bolstering the balance of the district's health trust, which was operating at dangerously low balances because of the lack of state inflation funding. While our educators will benefit from this financial decision in the long run, they still need to be compensated appropriate to the value of their high-quality professional skill. That's what the override will do. Secondly, we will invest in LHUSD's capital infrastructure by authorizing the school district to sell $49 million in bonds in 3 separate sales, with proceeds funding school building revitalization, including technology infrastructure upgrades that ensure we are preparing students for the future in safe and secure schools, new school buses, and refurbishing our athletic facilities with more durable materials, as outlined in line item detail by an independent certified public accountant. Education is about people. Our community's ability to inspire students to be the workforce of tomorrow depends on attracting and retaining the most talented educators and support staff. That's why we must support the M&O override. Maintaining the nearly 800,000 square feet of school buildings in the district requires more than a trip to the hardware store. That's why we must also support the LHUSD bond sale. So on this election day, November 8th, vote yes, yes for the Lake Havasu Unified School District bond sale and M&O budget override. Because a quality local education system is critical to the advancement of our goals. Paid for by Citizens for Havasu Schools.
It was about a year ago that we held our first education town hall right in this building. And I think we have more people here tonight competing against Game 7 of the World Series than we did initially, and that's a good sign. I see a lot of familiar faces and some new faces. We're going to move this thing along as quickly as we can. We'd like to open it up for questions from anybody in the audience. We feel that that obviously is the right thing to do, for you to have your voice heard. And as we get closer to Election Day, just a handful of days away, it's important that we still hear from you and answer any of those questions. I'd like to thank Mr. Becker and Jamie Festadagel. We know that Jamie probably did all the work putting this thing together tonight. And it's a great format. We have a panel of people that can really get down to the nitty-gritty of any of the questions that you might have with their answers. I'd still like to recognize the committee that worked hard on this. There's a number of people in here tonight. I won't embarrass you anymore. This is our last town hall. They've done an exceptional job, and what I think is unique about what we've done is we put together a diverse group. We didn't agree on anything, or excuse me, everything when we started off, and there's still some discussions that we have or have had in our latter meetings. But we've come up with, I think, is a good plan for our community and something that we can be proud of when it passes next Tuesday. And hopefully we'll have a little celebration Tuesday evening, maybe around 9:30, 10 o'clock, once all the results are in. But we started this, as I mentioned, about a year ago here. We went to every single elementary school in the community. We went to Thunderbolt Middle School. And we've done, I think, a pretty decent job about getting involved with the community. And one thing has to be mentioned also is that we worked with the school district. We needed to get their input, obviously. They know the numbers better than we do. We challenged them on some of the numbers. We went back and forth and came up with what we think is, once again, something that the community can wrap themselves around with the bond and the override. And I want to thank those folks that are involved in the district, and I will name them, and hopefully I won't forget anybody, but I want to thank Denise Miner for certain. She's been steadfast and a great ally on this. And Jamie, I mentioned Jamie. Andrea, thank you so much for that. And Nicole Cohen from the school board, bringing in some different perspectives as one of the people that makes very important decisions. So it's a big election coming up with the bond and the override. You have school board members that are up for re-election. Some are not running again. So we'll at least have 2 new board members on your school board. And I can tell you this is one of the most thankless jobs that I think anybody can ever run for public office. There's no pay, there's just a lot of grief, but I know that these people that are running and those that have served on the school board did it out of their love for the community, trying to do the right thing, and I think no one should ever forget that. It's something that, once again, a volunteer position, and you get more grief like Nancy would do to Charlie Brown, or Lucy would do to Charlie Brown, than any spectacular rewards. So good luck to those that are running for the board. And once we get the bond and override passed, we have the board settled in after the first of the year, some great things are going to happen to our schools, some things that needed to happen for a long, long time. And you will be amazed, the community will be amazed once we start things in motion, the progress, how it happens in a rather quick format, and we're able then to do things to the buildings of the district that haven't been done in decades, and also, very important, what we're able to do with the compensation for our district staff and our teachers, and make our staff salaries and compensations throughout the district competitive so we don't lose good people. And one of the analogies that I've used during this campaign, and most of you are in business, have been in business, working for a business, maybe own a business. There's nothing more frustrating when you bring somebody in and you train them and you use the resources at your disposal to make them what you think are good and possibly long-time employees, and you can't afford to keep them anymore. That is something that business people don't relish, and it's the same when we are addressing people in our school district. They move from other states, other communities. They come into Havasu, they bring their family, they bring somewhat of an economic engine. They're employed, and mostly not just by the district, but because of the lack of pay, they have to have 1 or 2 more jobs. And then they just can't make ends meet. Their families grow, things happen, they get a better offer from Needles, from Parker, And next thing you know, they're not in our district anymore and not participating in our community, and that's a huge loss in my opinion. So we're going to run down the panel. We're going to bring up first Mr. Carl Thompson, and Carl's going to talk about the athletics in the district, and specifically the high school. And then we'll have some other panel members. And by all means, fire away of any questions that you might have, and we'll have an open discussion prior to adjournment, if you will, and if an optional tour of the campus if you don't know what the high school is all about. So Mr. Carl Thompson.
Good evening. I am Carl Thompson, the head football coach and a teacher here at Lake Havasu High School. I've been here for the past 18 years. I've been involved with almost every sport that happens here. I'm here to speak on athletics. I'm very passionate about this for several reasons. Not only am I in favor of this as a coach, I'm also as a parent. I have a daughter that attends Lake Havasu High School, and I have 2 boys that are at Starline Elementary, so they're going to be coming through here. Athletic directly affects the success of students at our school. It's how they identify being a Knight. Secondly, athletics provides school spirit and community pride. It was standing room only this year for the Golden Shovel game, and it was just standing room only. There weren't enough seats. So again, most of the students' best high school memories are around athletics, whether they were participating in the field or they were just at the event. And our goal has always been to get players ready for the real world and to mold them as good citizens through the many life lessons in sports. So how will the bond help athletics? Well, first, the reason I got on this wasn't to do with football. When I was asked about this several years ago, I said, well, we need a second baseball field. We need a second softball field. We need places where our athletes can practice here so they're not being all over the city, going to different places. We are the high school, so we need them here. So, I came up with the idea of a second baseball field that's been in the works for many years, second softball field, a second practice soccer and football field. And, that would free up so many different city fields, because we've seen in the paper where the city, everybody wants field time. The second thing it would do is give a major overhaul to our current sports facilities. A lot of them are falling in safety regulations with the lights on the field, ADA seating. There's all kinds of issues that we've ran into. And along with that, the biggest event that happens every year at our school is graduation. We're limited in the number of seats that are available. In the bond for athletics, we talked about lighting for the main field, which we call Lee Barnes Stadium, the lower field, which was right now currently where the baseball, softball, and that multi-purpose field that hasn't been developed down there. We're talking about lighting everything down there, a track, an all-weather track here at Lake Havasu High School, field turf for Lee Barnes Stadium, improved seating for Lee Barnes Stadium, an actual concession stand restroom that is adequate at Lee Barnes Stadium, lower field turf as well for all the fields down below, to actually have true baseball and softball stadiums where you can sit and watch the game. You're not kind of blocked by the dugout or standing off to the side. Along with that, building those additional fields so that multiple games could go on at the same time. Improve parking down at the lower field, so when you're down there to watch a baseball or softball game, you have somewhere to park. And in 15 years, to take up all that field turf and put it down again. So for 30 years, we would have usable fields that we wouldn't have to worry about. And the last biggest part of the bond is dealing with transportation. Right now we travel a lot. For football season alone, I traveled 2,000 miles this season in our away games. And, the buses are always being used, and it's always nice to know that your son or daughter or athlete is on a bus that's going to be safe and reliable to get them to and from. With that, I always like to talk about, people always ask, why field turf? Why don't we just do this or that? Or they think AstroTurf. It's not AstroTurf. It is field turf. We look at it for several reasons. We could use the field almost year round. Minimal time down, where multiple teams. I have to schedule varsity, JV, and freshman football along with Thunderbolt football, the band, PE. Everybody wants to use the fields, and there's just not enough lighted fields for safety purposes for everyone to be out there in our hot climate. We talked about that. If actually going to field turf will lower concussions. It will prevent lower leg injuries, ACL injuries, minor injuries of hitting the ground. It is a softer, truer level playing surface. With that usability, with grass currently, you get about 60 hours a week. So you're talking for 26 weeks over 10 years, you get about 15,000 hours. If we went to the field turf option, you could get on that field for 100 hours a week for 48 weeks of the year. Over 10 years, you're at 48,000 hours. Someone could be using that field. Another big thing with the field turf, it's actually the investment is insured. So with field turf, when you have it, there is up to $32 million of coverage that is paid for by the company with your field. The second big thing that comes about turf is everyone's worried about what type of fill is in it. You know, you've heard in the news and everything when those first and second generation field turf fields had the rubber recycled tires or whatever, that there was some issues. Well, we've moved well beyond that, and our field turf option would not include that. We would actually be a little more organic. It would be a cork fill. Cork and sand would actually come in there to lower the temperature. Being the hottest place in America that has football, we don't need anything that's going to raise the field temperature. So with that new organic field, it's the same stuff that the University of Arizona just put in. It lowers the field temperature by 35 degrees. So, which is a big, big deal. And the name is Extrudant Cork Composite. For those that are wanting to follow, ECC is actually the new term. So it wouldn't be the rubber fill. It's not going to be where we have to put an irrigation system in to raise the humidity. So there's lots of different things in with the bond. And if you have questions, I'll be more than happy to answer those when we get that. Now, how will the override help athletics? Well, right now we have a participation fee of $800. And that's a pretty steep deal. I mean, a lot of people utilize the tax credit, but everybody wants that. If your athlete wants to play sports and go on a trip, you're out looking for money, and it gets expensive. I understand that. Like I said, I have 3 of them that are playing sports. I get it. But it would actually reduce that $800 fee to $400, which was where it was several years ago, and would make it more realistic for our athletes to be there. The second big thing it would do, it would allow Booster Club to return to their role of supporting athletics, not purchasing all the needs for athletics, and which would be huge, because you can ask our Booster Club people that are here, parents are seeing that $800 and it's like, well, I've done my part. And we're missing out on some of those components with our athletes getting that support. I'll give an example of the $800 fee. Last year for football, we had 150 players. So last season. And, you know, we did really well. We made it to the semifinals, first time since the 70s. So you would think this year that Havasu football would take off. The numbers, everybody would want to come and be a part. We were in year 2 of the $800 fee. I think my numbers this year were 87 athletes. So I went from 150 players out from football to 87 players out for football, all 3 levels. So again, the bond and override could make a huge impact on athletics. Again, I thank you all for listening to me here, and I'll introduce Lisa Kruger. Come on up.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having me here this evening. First thing I want to do is congratulate Mr. Becker for the fantastic job you do here at Lake Havasu High School, despite all of these circumstances that could get in the way. Today, I had the honor and opportunity to spend a couple of hours here at the high school in Mrs. Denny's business classes, and I'll be honest with you, I was afraid I was going to trip on the carpet in that room, and then one of the students, I don't think the chair broke, but it made some seriously unusual sounds as a student was transferring his weight in the chairs. So, you know, that's just a lot of normal people like me that don't have kids here at the school. We don't understand that that's actually happening until we see it firsthand. So it's an eye-opening experience. I am going to quote a few lines from an opinion piece that ran recently in the Today's News Herald. So if you read that or you've heard me make this speech before, because I've made it a couple of times, bear with me. But I want to remind everybody how crucial it is for us to vote yes, yes for Havasu schools. Our local Chamber of Commerce has about 700 members, but more importantly, our 700 members employ about 20,000 people in the Lake Havasu area. So we are a pretty good group of people, and we are really honored to have this opportunity to support these initiatives this year. Without this funding, every single one of us, our businesses, and not only do I work at the Chamber, but I also am a co-owner of a business, our businesses and our organizations will suffer. We all know that well-funded schools are essential to the growth of our community. The Chamber definitely understands the bond between education, workforce, and a strong local economy. The number one issue of our members is well-trained workers. Without the bond and the override, this problem will just get worse. Service will continue to deteriorate. Some businesses will be forced to close without the ability to hire, and those that can stay open will need to raise their prices to make up for the loss. So who pays for that? We know that we will pay for that. These two ballot questions, in my opinion, are the most important decisions we will make as a community in recent times. A local, sustainable funding method for public schools isn't just essential for the growth of our community. It's critical just to keep us at the status quo. Sustainable local education funding must be a priority because we know that our state legislature can't and won't solve this problem in the near future. So we have to depend on ourselves to make this happen for the future of our community and all of you that are out here in the audience this evening. We must support our public schools so the future workforce is trained to meet the needs of a global economy. We need more funding in the classroom for our educators and to ensure our school facilities are safe for Havasu's kids, our grandkids. I have 3 grandkids at Starline, and I'll have a 4th one there in 2 years. For our employees and our future leaders. We must renovate and revitalize aging buildings. We need to provide safe and reliable transportation. We have to modernize the infrastructure for basic technology needs, and we need to improve the athletics facilities and programs to encourage the link between sports, physical health and wellness, and that all leads to community pride. Your local chamber is all in for a yes, yes, win-win. We are so far into this that this is the first time. I've worked for our local Chamber of Commerce for 14 years and 9 months. This is the first time in my history with the Chamber, and to my knowledge, that the Chamber has actually written a check for a political cause. So it was pretty cool to get to sign that check. I forgot to take a photocopy of it, but I'm sure I could go to the bank and get a copy of it. But it was really an exciting day for me as a professional Chamber executive to understand that we cared enough to make that check happen. I've got to turn this over to the handwriting portion of my speech, so I don't write very well. But I do want all of you teachers that are in the audience to know that in the next few weeks, as part of the Vision 2020 Pillar 2 committee, of which I am a part, we're going to be introducing yet another program, and that is a business and education collaborative where we hope to link administrators, teachers, parents, students, and business through a quarterly networking style program where we can build a better rapport and a better friendship so that career paths are better defined with all of the stakeholders, and the stakeholders being those groups of people I just mentioned, so that we can all form a better bond to help the Lake Havasu community grow and prosper. I want to encourage you, if you haven't voted, and I haven't because I'm one of those old school people that likes to go on election day. If you're voting, tomorrow, I guess, is the last day for early voting, or if you're going to vote on Tuesday, make sure you remember to vote yes, yes. And I really appreciate the opportunity to be here this evening. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Nicole Cohen, and I'm currently a school board member, and that light is really bright right in my eyes. I didn't prepare a speech. I've been talking about the bond and the override now for a year. So I just figured I'd try and wing it. So I do want to thank everybody. I mean, everybody has been listed, and I appreciate seeing so much support, not just within the district, but in our community. And I know that we hear often that, you know, whether people or your community support you is based on a bond or an override passing. I will tell you that's not what I've witnessed since the last failure. It's just people have a different way of supporting education. But I just want to say that I've seen it in every pocket of our community. And I did not vote for the last bond, and I was adamantly against it, and I think everybody's aware of that. I'm not sure, because I can't see because of the light, how many new faces I see. But I will tell you that there's overwhelming support from the conservative groups that I've been involved with the past couple of years. And a lot of that is a testament to the teachers and the staff over the last year providing the information, making the cuts, the subcommittee meetings that we were in for the last year, going back and forth on numbers, what was a priority, you know, what could be lived without. There was some real coming together with community members and within the district, and that's playing out. And so I just wanted to encourage anybody who hasn't voted. I don't know anybody that hasn't voted except myself. I always wait till election day. But I encourage anybody to vote yes, yes on this bond and override. I believe in it wholeheartedly, and I really appreciate the people who were so respectful of me and my differing opinions over the past couple of years. And I've developed some friendships out of it. So I will I'm going to make this really short. I'll be happy to answer any questions and stay late, but I know a lot of people want to get to the game. And so I'm just going to introduce or bring up Jamie Festadega, I believe, is next. And again, yes, yes, bond and override. Thank you.
So I wanted to talk to you about why I got involved. And I've always been an advocate, obviously, for school funding, but this time it was very different for me. And I had gone out recruiting for teachers in Ohio a number of years ago. And Ohio is known, like Michigan and New York, for having an excess of teachers. There are lots of colleges, literally. You go to a city in Ohio and you trip over a college. And what we saw is universities in Ohio were producing less and less teachers. And so we were lined up with every other school that needed teachers across the United States looking for someone to come to us. And we were the lowest paying district there. And although I think I'm super friendly and nice and amazing, no one's coming to hang out with me. And so when we went back last year, there were fewer students there. And what we heard is college after college, they were closing their colleges of education because they were no longer profitable. Students were not wanting to become teachers. And so because of this, I joined the Arizona Department of Education Recruitment and Retention Task Force. It's made up of educators across Arizona that are concerned and working on this issue. 500,000 teachers are leaving the profession annually, and that costs districts $2.2 billion in training, orientation, and recruitment. Rural and high poverty schools in Arizona experience teacher turnover at a much higher rate than our metropolitan counterparts. We have to understand that teachers are in a competitive market. There is a massive teacher shortage going on, and teachers can pick and choose where they're going to teach. If we are going to recruit talented teachers to Lake Havasu, we can't say, we have the lake, come on down. We have to offer something more than that. Among the 130 school districts and charter schools that responded to the survey we put out, there were more than 8,100 teaching jobs across the state of Arizona this year that still needed to be filled. A few weeks into the school year, nearly 50% of open positions either remained unfilled or had been staffed by people who did not meet standard teaching requirements, meaning long-term substitutes. Districts have reported that close to 500 teachers either did not report to work at all or abruptly resigned within the first few weeks of school. Years ago, schools had a hard time finding special education, music, art instructors. Now administrators struggle to find even the most basic faculty needs. Years ago in Lake Havasu, we struggled to find math, science, special education. We are now struggling to find elementary school teachers. We have long-term substitutes in positions. We have teachers teaching large classes. We have teachers teaching with no prep hour. This is good for nobody. We have nearly 30 positions open district-wide. There are not enough young people interested in becoming teachers, and we need to change that. We're working on a change here. We're offering a CTE program for future teachers. But these students have to have a compelling reason why they want to stay in Lake Havasu, and money matters. So do working conditions, culture, and a variety of other things. When I went to the town hall meeting last year, I never expected the community to stand up and say that education was the #1 issue in the community. Nicole is exactly right. We get a bad rap that people don't support education here, and that's not true. But I realize that until we get our education house in order, we are going to lag elsewhere. In order to improve medical, employment, crime, LHUSD needs to have quality schools that are attractive to professionals and meet the needs of all students. I joined Citizens for Havasu Schools, and I've worked on the committee to oversee the bond numbers. We were very careful and questioned everything as to why something was needed and what we could live without. An area that is extremely important to me is busing. In the last bond, we asked for funds for busing for extracurriculars, but there was no mention of busing to Lake Havasu High School. I deal with attendance on a daily basis. What I see is a growing number of students who want to get to school but can't. These students live on the extreme north and south side of town. Many of these students are under 16 and are being cited by the police for truancy, yet don't have a viable option to get to school. The other reality is we're now using money that should be spent on salary to repair capital items, as there are no funds to purchase those capital items. So unless this bond and override are passed together, LHUSD will not have long-term funds to improve the school and to be able to hire the most qualified staff. I've worked as an educator since I was 21 years old. I never thought that I would be wealthy. However, when I look at young teachers now, they should not have to worry about making ends meet. That's where we are now. Arizona was just ranked by the Learning Policy Institute as the least appealing state in America to teach in. 15% of our teachers in Arizona are considered inexperienced, and Havasu has even more inexperienced teachers than that. This isn't who we are. It is time that we stand up as citizens and we take our city and the education in our city back. In order to protect our future, please vote yes, yes. And now my very good friend, Brady Krieger.
Good evening. My name is Brady Krieger. I've been a teacher in this district for 11 years. I taught at Thunderbolt Middle School for 5 years, and then this is my 6th year at Lake Havasu High School. 11 years ago, I was one of those teachers that Jamie was talking about. I'm from Wisconsin. There was an abundance of teachers, and there was very little jobs. Every job that I interviewed for, there was multiple people that had also applied. During the summer, I'd even struggled to land interviews at some times. During the summer, I received a call from a former principal at Thunderbolt that offered me a job on the spot. I took it, and I took it because I was going to come down here, get 2 years of experience, and then head back home. It's 11 years later, I've stayed. It can happen. It does happen. In the 11 years that I've been here, I've come to love this town. I met my wife here. We had our kids here. We bought a home here. We want to stay here. We want to raise our family here. I and many of my colleagues have also invested in this town. When I started in this district, at new teacher orientation, there was roughly 60 to 70 teachers that sat down with me getting ready to start in this district. Today, as I stand here, I struggle to remember a handful of teachers that are still here. We've lost that many teachers in that amount of time. The reason why I bring this up is because next year I'll have a new relationship with the district. Next year, I'm going to be a parent of 2 kindergartners that will be starting in this district. And I'm very concerned about the quality of teachers that we have. I know we have good teachers, but the issue is keeping those teachers here. As I reflect on my time in the district, I think about all the teachers that have come and gone, my colleagues that I've worked with over the years. We have lost a lot of talented teachers. I cannot stress enough the type of talented teachers that we've lost. As a parent, these are the types of teachers that I would have been in the principal's office with, demanding that my students have, my kids have. That's the type of talent that we need to keep here. And that's why passing this bond and passing this override is so important. I think it's important to recognize that we as a community all want the same thing. Whether we're from the district or members of the community, we all want good schools. We all want good teachers for our kids. If we want to ensure that Lake Havasu continues to attract people and continues to be a desirable place to live, we must invest in our schools. And investing in our schools and investing in our teachers are going to be huge in ensuring that this community continues to be successful. On November 8th, please make sure that you vote yes, yes, but please recognize that that isn't the end. That's just the beginning. We as a community must make sure that we take an active role in ensuring that our schools are thriving and that they reflect the needs of the community and the needs of our students. And we can only do that with good quality staff members and good quality teachers. The bond and override is just a starting point, but our real work lies ahead. All of us must take our opportunity to do our part and to ensure that we have the quality schools necessary to ensure that Lake Havasu continues to thrive. For my kids, for your kids, for the past students of this district, as well as the future students of this district. Thank you.
How many of you are Cub fans? 5-1 Cubs, top of the 5th. You heard from educators, people that are professionals, people that know information and can answer your questions. And we do have microphones up here at the dais. We also have a wireless microphone that we can pass around to the audience if anybody has any questions. Just a couple of things. And once again, we'll try to move through this, but I think it's pretty important listening to the folks that spoke. Economic growth is something I think we can all embrace, whether you're a Democrat, Republican, in between, old, young, it really doesn't matter. We like economic growth. Obviously, the theory is that more economic growth, tax base grows, less taxes for those that are paying taxes. And you have to invest in that. It just doesn't start from scratch. You have to go out and you have to invest in those sort of things. And investing in education, and you can read all kinds of stories from some of the Ivy League schools and just plain old common sense will garner those type of opportunities for economic growth. Our founding fathers knew the importance of education, and countries around the world that are surpassing the United States have really embraced education. For some reason, we lag behind in this. Jamie mentioned we're number 50 now in the country when it comes to education here in Arizona, K through 12. So there's a lot of things we need to do and a lot of things we need to correct. We have higher education in this community that everybody's proud of. Mojave Community College, Arizona State University. It was a bunch of private citizens, volunteers, that got together over quite a long period of time, and it was private funds that brought ASU to town. But I don't think anybody could argue the point that it was welcomed once they opened up shop, and now we have a college here, a 4-year school that we can be extremely proud of, and we're the envy of every other rural community in the state of Arizona. And that will continue to grow and to prosper. And for us not to fund K through 12 properly throughout the state, let alone here in Lake Havasu City, doesn't send a good message to higher education. The state funding, it's pathetic. Even if you talk to your state representatives in the House and the Senate, they'll agree with that. They can't argue the fact. Whether they're going to change that in our lifetime, who knows? There's got to be a better funding mechanism for them to look at. If you read editorials in the newspaper, sales tax is something that's been floated around. A lot of other states embrace that instead of property taxes. But that's not going to change overnight. And our schools are not going to get better if we don't fund them properly. And so locally, we have to take care of our own. And that's why voting yes, yes is so important. Proposition 123, that's been thrown around. If you looked at the paper today, big front page story. We knew this was going to happen. They're going to take this thing to the mat. Those that opposed the 123, the taking of state trust fund monies and putting them into our public schools, they're going to go and they're going to hold this thing up now for years. And I don't know if there's going to be any trickling down effect until the courts decide of any funds coming out of the school trust land that will benefit the schools. I know that Havasu was earmarked to get somewhere around $1 million the first go around, but it's probably not going to happen after that for quite some time if it happens at all. So those that are out there and you've heard it and you've seen it, the editorials in the paper, on social media, 123, why are we doing this? Well, this is why we're doing it, because when 123 reared its ugly head as a quick fix scheme, those that were paying attention knew that it was not going to be the salvation of our school funding needs. And the other thing real quick is, and you read letters to the editor, and I know people have good intentions, and maybe they don't know everything. God knows I don't. But, you know, they talk about certain things that the district has done. Why do they spend money on this? Why do they spend money on that? You know, a lot of it has to do with the state and the regulations, and Nicole and some of the others can speak better on this if you have more questions. But, you know, there's certain things that the state mandates that districts do, and not necessarily taking money out of the local coffers for, you know, asphalt work, but it's something that the state has, you know, a window of opportunity for that to happen. And so the district looks at that and says, you know what, this is something that if we don't take it, it's going to go away. And sometimes it doesn't make sense to some of us out there. But then again, what the state does with their regulations and procurements when it comes to school districts doesn't make sense either. So if you see stuff and you know people that are still a little confused about some of this, please try to get them to find the correct answers and not to spread things that aren't necessarily accurate. I think that's something that's real important. And what we try to do is we try to come up with everything that we know is accurate and put it out there. The first time that I know of that we went to the extent of looking outside to the private sector and having somebody that is a certified public accountant at least get those numbers honed down and give you an idea of where it's going to be spent far more than we've done in the past, and I think that was a big help. So with that said, we'd like to open it up to anybody in the audience that has any statements to make, any questions to ask, and we'll just take it from here. Please, don't be bashful. Yes? Sylvia, can you hang on 1 second? I think they're trying to get a microphone down here.
Anyway, I think it's quite essential, and I'm an advocate of what's going on here, and for this so much. I don't have children. I don't have grandchildren. So when I talk to people, they go, why don't you have a dog in this fight? And a strong education, I think, is vital to the future of Lake Havasu. And I think it's criminal that our pay scale is like at $31,000 when someone like Parker's at $33,000. So naturally, so I'm so much for this because also I know it's not just the education. It's like to have a good doctors and healthcare system here. We better have good teachers. And then again, And I try to do my part since I don't have children and do the sponsoring every year of some help from athletics and so forth. My question is this, because people ask me this, and I want to be informed enough to answer the question wisely. And this is one thing I'm not really sure of, so Steve and any of you can answer this. How soon, when this bond, and it's going to pass, you guys, because we're behind it, it's going to pass. When this bond and override, when it passes in November, how soon will we start, see how long, what's the process on getting the money into our school system? That's my question.
Nicole?
I'm under the, I understand that the first bond sale happened sometime in the spring of 2017 in time to include in our next budget. That's how I understand it, but I haven't been through one, so correct me if I'm wrong.
No, that's
anybody.
true. The bond's broken down over three-year periods. So you have 2017, 2020, and 2023. So my math's right. But that's correct. The first bond will go out in the spring, and then those monies will be available. And your budget is on a it's not on a fiscal year. It's on a
it's a fiscal.
Oh, it's a fiscal year. Mm-hmm. So you'll have it for the next go around.
Correct.
Okay. So does that answer your question? Okay. Any other questions, please? This is a great time. Make a statement. I'm sorry, sir. We'll get your microphone.
Is there any opportunity for the government of the state to grab the money that you're trying to raise to use for other pet projects?
So the question, if I understand it, is the government have any money that they can grant us?
No.
Oh, steel.
Absolutely not.
I don't know. There you go. Nicole will take care of that.
This is our money. If this bond and override passes, there are no strings attached. We are accountable to nobody except for our community. That's it.
And if I may, everything stays local. And this is something that I think that those that might have a hard time with what we're trying to accomplish here and will oppose this on their ballot, when this does pass, they have every opportunity to go into school board meetings and have their voice heard and challenge those board members and district officials on what they're doing. You don't have that opportunity in Phoenix, but you have it here in Lake Havasu City. So the money does stay here. I'm sorry I misunderstood the question, but it does stay here, no strings attached.
Hi, my name is Chad Nelson. I'm a local business owner. I sell real estate. And Sylvia, you could probably help answer this question. How many listings do you think we'll get if this bond doesn't pass, bond and override? So she probably has, and I have, mainly doctors and teachers trying to find out how much their home is worth right now if this doesn't pass. And basically what happens if they decide to sell and we can't replenish the people who are buying those homes is the property values have to come down until we reach a point to where someone can buy those homes. And as we have doctors move out, then we have less people who need physicians who are interested to move into Lake Havasu City. So it's very important that we it's not going to affect me that much if the bond doesn't pass, because I'll sell a bunch of real estate listings, but I don't want that to happen. Now, is there anybody in the room that rents? Raise your hand. Okay, if you rent a home, vote yes, because the source of the money in this bond is from property taxes. Okay, and if I look at if these numbers are correct that we all have in our packets here, if you have a $100,000 home, it's going to affect you by $61 per year. And if you have a $750,000 home, it's going to affect you by $823 per year. So I would like to, I think that's about the price of, in each price point, about how much you would spend for a watch. So I can keep my watch for another year. That's just fine. And I hope that everyone else can too. So I think it's very important that we vote yes, yes. It's very critical at this time. It's basically like we have not done an oil change on a car for several years, and now that car, we basically need to replace the engine. If we don't replace the engine, then it's just going to break down. I'm very positive that we are going to pass this bond, and Jamie will finally be able to sleep. Because she's like, I'm looking at her, she's like, I'm over it, you know? And she has worked really hard. Everybody has worked really hard, but these folks don't get paid extra to do what they're doing. They're out in the community, they're out pushing this like crazy every day, pushing, and they don't get a red cent for what they're doing. They just want to improve the community. They want to give everybody a better chance to make a better wage in this town, to be able to go out to the movies every once in a while and not have to, penny pinch. So this is very important. I've been an advocate of this, and I believe in it. Everybody, just don't buy a watch next year. Support the bond.
Just a couple of things real quick. The Realtors Association, they kicked in $10,000 to help market what we're trying to do and to get this thing passed. They've always been supportive. They spent a lot more money in 2014, and we assured them that if they were to invest in us one more time, that we would get this thing passed. And so we appreciate the support, not only from the individuals of the realtor community, but also as the organization as a whole, for stepping up once again and giving us that kind of money.
On Saturday at the America's Best Communities celebration, there was a voters booth with information. And if you have anyone who is saying they can't afford this, there are exemptions for people that are below a certain income level or who are disabled. And so encourage them to call and find out about that.
Thank you, Alice. That's a good point. That's something that we've really championed here in the past several weeks. Get a hold of the county assessor's office or go online. You can get an exemption or a freeze, and that is something that senior citizens can do. Hey, we understand the fact that there's a pinch going on in this country still, and in some communities and some households. We understand that. Everybody struggles to some degree. And in getting back to the analogy, there was a letter to the editor in the paper talking about nobody has a home in Havasu worth $100,000. I'm paraphrasing. It might be true, but the assessed value, there's a lot of homes in this town with an assessed value of $100,000. And that's what you get taxed on. And there was an example shown, and John Masden, who was a committee member, used his own property. Home is probably worth $270,000 on the market. The assessed value is $138,000. You take the bond and the override combined together, it's $140 rounded up for a year. So that's probably, correct me if I'm wrong, those folks in real estate, that's probably a really good example of the average person in this community that goes out and works and has a home. So yeah, there's the extremes for those folks that have the higher end homes, but there are plenty of homes in this community with the assessed value of $100,000. Anybody else, please? Yes, ma'am.
I know that we're fighting hard for yes vote, but are we giving up the fight for the money that was ordered to be paid to the state of Arizona? Are we giving up on 1, 2, 3? Or are we going to insist that they stay by the Supreme Court's decision that this is the money that was for Arizona? Nicole, I'm with you. I saw you at a packed house at I applauded you. I stood up and I applauded you. I am totally 100%. I've heard that some of the people in the district that have been fighting this fight for a long time have had to learn to take what they can get. But I hope that doesn't mean giving up on 1, 2, 3. Not 1, 2, 3, but giving up on what money is due to Arizona based on the Supreme Court decision.
I think that's a great point, and no, I don't think any of us should give up. In fact, there's some ideas being floated around of what we're going to do after this thing passes, because once again, the funding from the state's not going to change. It's severely inadequate, and we need to do something about that. I would imagine that this court battle on 1, 2, 3, even though a federal judge came back to the school districts, and once again I'm paraphrasing, saying, hey, you guys, you messed up big time. You owe the school districts in the state of Arizona this ungodly amount of money. You need to pay them. State of Arizona, politicians that they are, no, we don't have the money. So they go to another source where they can dive into, i.e. the state trust land fund, which has about $8 billion in it. And they said, we'll tag into that. And then right away there was the question of constitutional justification to do that. And if you read the article in the paper today, that fight's not going to end anytime soon. I think that once we pass this, we should keep the momentum going, and we should send a message to the state. We should maybe do a voter initiative to where we, the people, challenge the state on a better and more fair funding mechanism for school. Do the math, make sure it's funded properly, put some teeth into it where they can't take the money out of education as they do every single day and pay something else. I mean, we really need to stand up to the state and say enough's enough. We're going to take this thing over because you're not doing a good enough job. So I really believe that there's been some discussions, as I mentioned, that once this is done, to keep it going and to go to the next level. And I think that's real important. Please, anybody else? Yes.
Yeah, this is loud. A couple of things I wanted to point out for folks here and for also in the visiting audience, that when you go to the ballot, the way it's set up, the ballot is on two different sides of the ballot. So on the first page is one part of the bond vote, and on the other page, on the back side, is the other side. So in order to vote on both pieces of it, you've got to either turn that page over in order to see the bond on both sides, the bond and the override. The other thing is that these people have done a tremendous job, and they certainly deserve our respect and appreciation. But for those who are senior citizens, if we don't pass this bond, that means you may not have a heart doctor when you need it. You may not have the kind of doctor or nurse when you need it to be able to take care of your needs. You may not have some of the vital services like a trained cop to help you when you are in need. So even though we have a lot of senior citizens here that don't have children, you will be impacted if this doesn't pass. So I just wanted to make us all aware of that.
Thank you, Betty. That's a great point. And there's no doubt, if you talk to the professionals that represent us in economic development and in health services, they'll tell you straight up, the first question people ask, what's your education like? The second is health. So we are losing opportunities, entrepreneurs, people coming into our community because by their standards, our education K through 12 is not up to snuff. And that is just a hard, cold fact. So those folks out there that are seniors, and yeah, I can go into to Albertsons, I think, every Wednesday and get my senior discount. So I guess I'm in that class now. I mean, wake up. If you want good health insurance and things that you can rely on, you really need to get behind this. And once again, there's those opportunities out there for exemptions and freezes if your income so shows, and the county will do that. And I ran into a number of people that thanked us for bringing that up, and they themselves have taken advantage of that program. So that's a very good point. Thank you, Betty. Yes.
Steve.
Yes.
Can I make a comment on that?
Sure, Lisa.
Just real quickly. One of the things that we're also doing through the Vision 2020 Pillar 2 is we're offering some internship programs to high school juniors and seniors, and we've been interviewing them this week, and it's just been such a wonderful opportunity to learn how bright and talented our high school juniors and seniors are. We've interviewed 13, and we have 2 more tomorrow. So out of 15 kids that want to be in this program, 10 of them have expressed health care, some form of health care, everything from from nurse practitioners to thoracic surgeons to physical therapists. They have a real desire to go into a medical field. Some of them would like to come back to Havasu, but one of the questions we've asked them is what would we have to do to get you to come back to Havasu, to practice in these areas? And most of the kids have said, well, we would need to have better communication, better understanding, better relationship with the community in order for us to want to come back. And what they're talking about is the education program that we have here. They don't feel like that coming back as a professional would be a great thing for them to do just because of the current situation that we have with education funding.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Yes, I don't want to take up a lot of time, but I'm one of those senior citizens with no kids in the system and a limited income. And I think we often look at the big issues and we forget the very basics. These buildings have to be brought up to code. We have to improve our facilities, and that's what a bond is for, to improve capital assets. And does anybody here believe that interest rates are going to go down? I talked the other day to two older citizens for about an hour and a half, and we got around to talking about interest rates, and they decided maybe they'd reconsider because we're never going to be able to fund a bond as low as we can right now.
That's true. Very good point. And once again, you got to look around our community, and limited income, fixed income, whatever term you want to use, it's not exclusive to senior citizens. It's not. I mean, there are plenty of people struggling in this community that are under that age that have multiple jobs and are trying to do the right things by themselves and their families. So, I have a hard problem with that when, I'm a senior citizen, I'm on a fixed income. Look around, most of us are. Businesses are. We go by budgets every single day if you want to be successful. So those are the things that I think we should come together as a community and not divide us. And to invest, once again, as Al mentioned, in your infrastructure. You own the schools, by the way, if you didn't know that. You own them. And so just like anything else that you own, if you had control over it, you're not going to let it deteriorate. And we need to stop that, and that's what the bond will do. Yes?
Quick couple of questions for Coach Thompson regarding the fields. In your opening remarks, you said that the field temperature was going to be 35 degrees cooler. Is that 35 degrees cooler for grass as a comparison or over the old field and AstroTurf? Second question is what kind of a warranty do we get on that field?
With the grass, you usually have a sand inlay, so just think of it the golf course. When you hit the ball in the bunker, how much hotter it is there from the normal. So with that sand fill, it's actually holding in the heat. The cork would be a lot less. It would be 35 degrees cooler on the field because the cork isn't going to hold in the heat just as the ground would. The fibers are also UV resistant, so they're not going to hold in the heat as well. So the turf field is different. Now, the AstroTurf field of back in the day would be very hot because it's all the rubber underneath, so that would be eliminated. So, and the second part of that question again was the warranty. It's based on the different companies. I just had another company come in today, a company called Field Turf that actually did U of A's. They have an 8-year warranty in which the company pays for you, and then it goes from there. The company that came in today gives you a 15-year warranty, which they pay for. So that is actually when you purchase it. It just depends on which package or who gets the final bid. And the one covered $32 million worth of warranty, depending on any defects or anything else that would happen to the field.
Depending on where you go once this passes, what's the life expectancy?
Again, the company that came in today, they guaranteed 15 years.
So that's the one that probably gave you the most.
Correct. And in our budgeting, that's at the end of that 15 years. We could roll it up just like the carpet in your house. Well, usually it's about that time of wear and tear. You can actually sell it and make money back on the old one and pay for the new one that you're putting down. But it's all budgeted for 30 years.
Please, anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Hi. I'm from Orange County, California. Moved here 10 years ago. I have friends in that area that are teachers, and I have friends here now that are teachers. I volunteered when I lived in California in the school district there, and I again volunteer here. There's a huge difference, huge difference. I commend you for those of you who don't have children or grandchildren but are willing to be at meetings and put in the hours to help. I have 2 grandboys here in school and a granddaughter in about 4 years. So I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who's doing so much to help. It's hugely appreciated by probably more people than you realize. And I also wanted to ask, it seems like we're preaching to the choir here because we might all be here in support, maybe some not, I don't know. But I talk to everybody that I do something with, golf, I sing in the choir here, whatever. Just talk to your friends and your neighbors and anybody you're in a organization with or whatever to help them understand and to see better that this is really something we need to do.
Well, thank you, and that's very true. We've reached out to every media known to man and womankind during this journey, and still there are folks that don't understand or not aware of what we're trying to do. And if you could reach out and touch someone, like the old saying goes, I think that's very beneficial, and make sure that we can change as many minds as we can here in the next few days to vote yes, yes. Yes, sir.
I'm George Olson. I've been in Lake Havasu for 8 years. Brady's been my boss here for the last 3 years. And I'm voting yes, yes. But, you know, we talk about seniors. My youngest is 46. And there's a lot of stress out there with the seniors. A lot of them have talked about it. And they're dealing with things. My position right now, my medical's going up $91 a month. I'm on a fixed income. I've got a $56,000 home. I own it outright, so all I've got to do is keep paying the taxes. But it isn't easy for the seniors, but I know a lot of them are biting the bullet and stepping forward. So downstream, we may have to help some of them. And the little bit of money you're talking about, if you want to go and try for it, have you looked at those numbers? Who can live on $25,000 right now? And now you're going to take more of it away. And they don't qualify at $25,000. They only qualify at $20,000. So we need to be careful. I'm voting yes, yes. I encourage everybody else, yes, yes. There's nothing more important than the kids that are coming up in any town relative to schooling. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions? Anybody want to know the score of the game? 6-3? Oh boy. Cubs up. Okay.
Steve, I just wanted to say one quick thing
Sure.
because it just came to my attention not too long ago. Somebody was asking me, well, what were we doing with our lottery money? And I thought, lottery money? I don't remember anybody talking about lottery money. So I started researching. Almost 30 years, Arizona has not got one dime. Not one dime has gone to K-12 for lottery money. I just wanted to point that out. So it's so important to exercise local control because I feel like a lot of people feel like they've been part of this bait and switch at the state level, propositions and initiatives, and then it doesn't work out. But a bond and an override will work out because you can show up every single month and say, excuse me, what are you doing? And that's how we need to exercise our local control.
Well, thank you, Nicole. And there was a sales tax, if you remember, several years ago imposed by Governor then Jan Brewer, and it was supposed to go towards education. Guess what? It didn't. And I think that's why we need to take it to the next level. After this is done, we can move on while we have the momentum and do something that has some teeth and to send a message down to Phoenix that this isn't going to be tolerated anymore. The bottom line is they're down in Phoenix spending education money, and they say to the communities across the state of Arizona, by the way, just about every community in the state of Arizona passes these things regularly, all the time. Tempe, I think it was just in elementary schools, $165 million for a bond that's coming up on the ballot on November 8th. They sent out a 2-page letter saying support the bond. I'm telling you, it's going to pass. We didn't send out a 2-page letter. We spent a year working on this. And so what the state does is they say, let the communities battle it out. Let them go head to head. Let them fight it out. We'll let them do bonds and overrides, and they can keep the money locally. Well, gee, thanks a lot. What about all the millions of dollars we send down there? Everybody just got through paying their first, either their entire property tax for 2015, or half of it at least, right? That just went out. If you didn't write a check, it's taken out of your mortgage. So, we need to do something. Maybe what we need to do is something extreme to where we say, hey, you know what? We're just going to keep it in the counties. All education dollars stay in the county. Once again, it's a heck of a lot easier going up to Kingman and talking to the Board of Supervisors about where they're spending their money is than to go down to Phoenix. Because you're going to get into that meeting room. You're not going to get in front of the state Senate and the House. So those are the things I think we really need to look at and really send, once again, a strong message to our elected officials and tell them enough's enough. Yes, ma'am.
I buy lottery tickets. Where's our school money? Who do we call? Who do we contact? I'm ready for a revolution here.
I'm with you. Let's stand together.
Look, Steve.
The fact of the matter is the proper way to go, and they're not hard to find. We can help you out. Is you have Sonny Borelli, who's currently in the House and now has been voted into the Senate. You have House races that are going to be decided on Tuesday. You have an incumbent, and you have a couple of new people running. One of them is in the audience now. And those are the folks that you need to reach out to. They are our fellow citizens. They're around the community, but you probably need to get email addresses and phone numbers to their offices down in Phoenix. And we can help with that. I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah, the state lottery is kind of a quasi-government agency. There is a state lottery director, and I'm not one of those people. I don't really, when I'm trying to do something, I wouldn't waste any time with the staff. I would demand an audience with the state lottery director. I can't remember that person's name, but we don't really see any benefit from lottery funds in Mojave County. So it's a double-edged sword. It's fun to play, but there's no payback for us.
Yeah, can you imagine if we could rally the other districts in the state? The pure numbers alone would be overwhelming. That's a great question. I wish I had the answer. I truly do. Yes, sir.
And get it out there that the state isn't supporting any of the cities.
I can't speak for other communities, obviously, and maybe they're just in that cycle where that's how they're just going to continue to do things. But as we know, Lake Havasu is unique in a lot of ways. We do come together as a community to make significant things happen that the rest of the state's in awe of. ASU, for example, the 2020, we're in the Elite 8 as being one of America's best communities. But we can't fund education properly through the state. And I think what we should do is we should start it here locally and then take our fight to the next level. Whether it's to the county, the state, whatever we have to do, that's what we should do and start it right here, because I think we understand the struggles here in Havasu. We do have a diverse demographic in our community. We have young people, middle age, and we have an ever-growing senior sector in our community. And I think we should stop fighting amongst ourselves, come together with a good game plan, and let the state know that we're unhappy.
Hey,
Yes.
Steve. Hold on. To answer your question, George, there are some grassroots parent organizations that are starting within some other communities that are looking at organizing and addressing this education issue, because as Mr. Greeley said, Havasu isn't alone in this. This is a state issue. This is communities across the state are dealing with this. And so I think its push has finally come to shove, and I think some other parent organizations are getting started. So things could happen in the future here.
That's great news. Yes. Leo.
Yeah, and kind of following up on you, Steve. I mean, you mentioned it, and some people in the crowd have mentioned it, that it is important that the local communities come together to raise the money and to vote yes, yes. Examples like this, but it is a state issue, and you do have elections coming up where you do elect House representatives who decide on where the money goes, or if the money goes to where it should. And what's happening now that's not happening. It hasn't been happening for a while now, where Prop 123, it just keeps getting taken from education and go into things like prisons. I mean, if you look at the state budget every year, you'll see it happening every single year. So all I can say is to urge you to really look at your reps. Look who's running, look at all levels, whether it's the district or it's the city council. I mean, city council is not, they don't have a lot to say about education, but in the House of Representatives, those are the ones who decide who gets the money and when they get it or how much they get it. So I just urge you all to really, really look at your reps and look at everybody who's running and see who supports education. Because when you have that culture change at the state level, that's when education changes across the state. And that needs to happen first. So thank you, Steve, for pointing that out.
You bet. No problem. Yes, sir. Yes, Steve.
Yeah, the director of the Arizona Lottery is Gregory Edgar. ArizonaLottery.com.
Isn't
And
technology
if
great?
I get on the board, I will go with you, and we will talk to him. We will talk to him, because I didn't know that either, Nicole. Thanks for pointing that out. That is all.
Way to stir it up, Nicole. Yes, anybody else? Okay. I guess that does it. Hey, thank you so much. This is the last time we're doing this, of course, and it's been a lot of fun, very educational, and taking your time out, especially Game 7 of the World Series, you should be commended or condemned. I don't know which one, but thank you again, and have a great evening. And please get the word out, and let's get this thing passed. Vote yes, yes.
Hey, you guys, there's some buttons and signs. They're like the end of that. So if you want to grab them and wear them this weekend so I can stop schlepping them around, I would be eternally grateful. So they're out there, and they're your parting gifts.